Carter, the Power Bryant. How much? So listen, I went on your show this week when the news broke about Jamar Cain, which we'll talk a lot about.
Yeah.
To pick up our conversation, though, Mr. Carter, why are you so adamant about this dusting the crawfish? Why are you okay with it?
People should be allowed to eat their food the way they want to. Now, here's my question. Are you saying
do you eat chicken? Do you eat chicken medium rare?
Chicken medium rare?
Yeah, I see. You heard that right. Do you eat chicken medium rare?
No.
There are just some things that you're not supposed to do.
Okay. But so when you're talking about dusting, I know some people dust the crawfish after they're done and have it sit in a chest and then allow it to, season for an extra 10, 15 minutes. Or are you talking about once you're getting ready to eat the crawfish, you dust them?
That's what dusting is.
Okay. I know, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I just don't. I just think you should enjoy your crawfish the way that you want it. Some people like mushrooms, some people like potatoes, some people like sausage. But if you want to dust them, go right on ahead. Now, I'm interested. It is amazing. It is amazing how unanimous it is that people are anti-dusting. It blows my mind.
Carter, you're not from Louisiana if you dust your crawfish. I'm sorry. You are not Cajun if you dust your crawfish. I was told per sources that Nick Saban dusts his crawfish.
Does he really?
No, I have no idea. But Satan does. Satan does. The devil does. Devil worship. That's what I hear. All right.
Oh, man,
Carter the Power Bryant joins us. So Carter, Saturday, as I talked about, I talked about this on your show. We talked to Jamar Cain.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to let him at his due time and his due process say what he needs to say. I don't think it's my right to do that. However, it's time. We just got to move on. Next man up mentality. There are some coaches out there like Bo Davis, Mike Elston, Elijah Robinson, and Todd Banks, whose names have come up in the beginning. So let me ask you a two-part question. Number one, how big is it that Jamar Cain is leaving this late or early into a next season? And who do you think the Tigers should go after?
So two things can be true at once, Blake. You can be a very good coach. You could be the absolute best defensive line coach. And honestly, Jamar Cain is up there, whether it's recruiting, whether it's coaching this group up. You made this point plenty of times. The lack of depth on the defensive line forced Mekhi Wingo and Jaquelin Roy play absolutely large amounts of snaps. He is a really good coach, and he is going to be really tough to replace. There's no doubt about it. You saw what he did recruiting some really good offensive linemen for parts of the country, defensive linemen for parts of the country that LSU sometimes doesn't get players, right? Minnesota with Jackson Howard and Womack. LSU has gotten some players from Maryland, but not many. So he did a really good job in a short period of time. What this guy did was nothing short of incredible. And I know Oklahoma source reach out to me and say, hey, this is the best coach that Brian Kelly has hired up to this point. This was last summer. But at the same time, a defensive line coach doesn't move the needle as much as other coaches do on the staff. The head coach, the OC, and the DC move it more than anybody else. And I could make a strong case that the offensive line coach is so vital for a team to succeed. So Jamar Cain is really, really, really good. But at the same time, the roster is still the same. Jacoby and Guillory, spoke for the defensive line and said, hey, we're going to keep playing hard and we're going to play hard for whoever comes in here next. So it's not me, belittling someone's importance. Jamar Cain was really, really, really good. And like you say, LSU should go look for the filet mignon. LSU is LSU, right? But it's also one of those things where this isn't as big of a deal as if a coordinator left. So yes, it's late in the process. Yes, we're going to have a lot of questions. Are we still in it for Colin Simmons for 2024? And all that stuff will happen in due time. But for right now, it sucks, but there's no need to overly panic.
I agree with that. And I think if you make a right hire, it doesn't it and no disrespect to Jamar Cain, it could elevate
Right.
what you were doing. Like if you go out and get a Bo Davis, okay,
Yeah.
Carter, with all due respect, that's massive because
Yeah.
he's already recruiting Colin Simmons. He's already recruiting the McKinley kid out of Acadiana. You don't necessarily miss a beat there. Okay,
Right.
but you go into a guy like Mike Elston, or you go to a guy like like Mike Elston or Todd Banks. Those guys aren't recruiting Colin Simmons. They're not recruiting McKinley. So I think you got to be smart here. Now, Gerald Watson is a guy that's going to probably take over. He's going to have to do some recruiting, and it's going to take guys like Sherman, Jordan Arsenal. They're going to have to really step up while Cain is out to tell him, like, look, we're coming. Just be patient.
Right.
Here's the only thing that I'll say. Number one, I think that Matt House sometimes can be a little unrealistic of what he actually is doing. Okay. Jamar Cain in this defensive line, let's call it what it is. This defensive line underperformed all in the interior. Okay. I don't want to get back in this debate with you, but it's crazy how we had this exact debate last week and now Jamar Cain's gone.
Right.
I think that this falls more on Matt House and some of his play calling when the defense looks suspect at times. Carter, we were horrific on third down. You got to get more pressure on the quarterback from the interior. Now, you can say, well, Mason Smith's coming back. And, Carter, I've gotten to a point where, and you know this more than anybody because you covered the SEC and LSU.
Yeah.
Buddy, I get it for like Mason Smith, but Mason Smith's got to step up. He's got to have a big year. You got to have good reps from guys like Jalen Lee and Parishand and others. You got to do better than what you're doing. I think Jamar Cain helped you do that, but we'll have to wait and see. Let me ask you this question. Who do you think, and I don't know if you mentioned this. I don't remember you saying who you would take. Of some of the guys that have been mentioned, who would be on the top of Carter Bryant's list?
I love Charlie Partridge at Pittsburgh. I just do. Once again, that's kind of out of left field a little bit. He's coached in the SEC before, and Pitt's defensive lines have been really good these past couple years. Now, look, Aaron Donald was pre him, but still, they have an undersized defensive tackle.
Matt House was actually the guy that.
Yeah, Matt House. Yeah, but
right.
They have an undersized defensive lineman that's going to get drafted really high. His name slips my mind. And Pitt's defensive lineman. They also had another guy, number 17, who's still in the league. He plays for the Titans now. Pitt's defensive lines have been coached up really well in recent years. That's just from a technical standpoint. Obviously, Bo Davis would be the perfect hire, but every time the defensive line job opens up for LSU, Bo Davis is the first name is mentioned. And
why not?
Yeah, I mean, it makes too much sense, and it would be a seamless transition. And like you said, you're able to recruit the same players that LSU is already recruiting. And then on top of that, a big thing for LSU when they hired Brad Davis was Emory Jones and Will Campbell already knew him, right? And
that's why I brought up, you're already recruiting Colin Simmons and Elijah Robinson. He's already recruiting Colin Simmons. Like,
yeah,
the familiarity is a big deal.
Yeah, and Will Campbell and Emory Jones likely come to LSU regardless of who that coach is, but it helped. It undoubtedly helped. So, look, there's so many different, bonuses of having Bo Davis hired. I do agree, though, Blake, that it would be nice that this isn't an in-house hire, right?
You already did it once, Carter. You already did it once.
And that's nothing against Gerald Chapman or anyone in there that could take over.
Well, I don't mean this with all, and this is all due respect to Gerald. I mean, I would need to dig more into how his recruiting's been too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, once again, it's kind of a weird position to evaluate as far as like who's recruiting who and all of that. But yeah, I think LSU, I do know Brian Kelly has spoken with this position group, right? And I think everybody is still locked in. But part of this problem, and LSU had to deal with this last year with Andre Carter, Blake. A lot of people in that building liked Andre Carter. And the same thing is true here. A lot of people in this building like Jamar Cain. And both of those guys coached a lot of the guys that are still in that room right now. So I do think affability and relatability is going to be huge with whoever they hire next. So, and that's, especially for a line coach, it's a lot of the repetitive stuff that you're told week in and week out. That connection is very important. It was for me, for my position coach. And I know it was probably for the same way for you, Blake. It's very important to keep that continuity and everybody together in that room.
What's Haley yelling at?
Taylor Swift won some award for they're doing and she's going so actually I'm going to bring this up. I'm actually glad she said that. So she's actually going to Dallas this weekend for a Taylor Swift concert. And apparently, Blake, something else pretty big is going down in Dallas this weekend. I think you know what that is.
Yeah, women's Final Four.
So I don't know anything. Like, I know NCAA ticket prices for whichever March Madness event is all like dished out to corporate, so the resale market gets crazy. And I would be going by myself. So if somebody is watching this, going to the game, it's on Friday. I would love to go. I would love to witness LSU in a Final Four. I've been to a Final Four before in New Orleans when AD and Thomas Robinson went at it. I would love to go to this game on Friday. So if anyone out there is going, let me know.
John Butler sends us a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, John. He says, in honor of Carter the Power Bryant and kids dinner at Cafe Boucher in Franklin. I like it. Okay. Thank you so much, John.
JSB's a legend, man.
Thank you so much for the super chat.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, let's get to women's basketball in just a minute.
Yeah.
Spring football thoughts?
Yeah, everything's going about what you would expect at this point, Blake. The only thing is it's kind of hard to have good practices if you only have 6 scholarship offensive linemen in a practice. And
so hold on 1 second.
No, go ahead.
That is highly inaccurate.
Okay, go ahead.
I was there Saturday. That's highly inaccurate. They had at minimum 8. Miles Frazier was out. I'll give you that. Shoot, what's his name? I forget. Garrett Dellinger was taking minimal reps, but he was out there and he was dressed. Charles Turner was out there. He was dressed. That's not true.
Oh no, I'm not talking. It wasn't. I was talking about last Thursday's practice. They only had 6.
Well, that's also not true.
Well, when Garrett.
So let me just say this. I have no idea where that's coming from, but you want the photo? Because I was there Saturday. Yeah. So.
Oh, no. I know Saturday was different, but when Garrett Nussmeier went through the second team reps, they only had 10 players on the field and 4 offensive linemen running the reps with him. So I don't know if that was some of the players weren't doing the team drills, but
if they had a really bad need, Fitzgerald West would move back over.
Right. So that's what I'm wondering, but I'm just pointing out.
Anyway, continue. I really interrupted.
No. I'm glad you did. But the point is, the second team reps for that day. It was just that day. My major point is spring football. I think a lot of coaches are going to reevaluate everything when it comes to spring because there's just so many people out, and you want to be so cautious because there is just no real upside. And that is the major point here, Blake, is nobody is hurt and no one's had a serious injury up to this point.
That we know of. That is public out there. Now, are some people banged up and left out of practice? Yeah, of course. But the truth is there's not any public knowledge of any massive injury up to this point. Now, once again, we'll see how the defensive line gets coached up these next couple of weeks. That's going to be the big story of how they go about it. But and I understand don't jinx it, but that honestly is the story, right? I just think LSU going into next year, they have a national championship level roster. Now, do they have holes? Do they have some depth issues that they are
going to try and figure out of who they can trust as backups. Yeah, of course. But starters wise, they have a national championship level roster. And you could see it. You could see a lot of people truly believing in what LSU has next year. Last year was a feeling out process, rebuilding a team with 39 people. Now you can see a very confident group of players, and we'll see if they actually fulfill their destiny.
Josh Pate came out with the top 10. I'm going to talk about this after you get off. I want to know your thoughts because Josh Pate's top 10 was UGA, Bama, Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Penn State, Utah, USC, and Oklahoma. He came out and clarified. He says, I'm quoting, 2 of LSU's last 3 seasons have been sub 500 or below. They aren't a top 10 program when it comes to program health. Your thoughts?
Oh, it's horrible. It's just I can understand the circular logic or whatever kind of logic he tried to apply there, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, objectively speaking, I think it says a lot more about your program that one person came in with a roster that totally need to be rebuilt and won the SEC West in year 1. That's a sign of the program being strong, right? You can make a case that makes LSU the most
much
unbelievable
more
program.
dangerous.
Yes. Like, the sign of a good program is winning national championships with 2 head coaches that really couldn't get a job after they were let go. I mean, that is a sign of a good program, right? I just have a tough time believing that LSU isn't in everybody's top 10 list. If you were to poll 10 national college football writers, if you were to poll 10 NFL executives, so on and so on and so on, LSU would be in everybody's top 10. Now, once again, I don't know Josh Pate personally. I know some people that do know him pretty well. And he is a very good college football commentator. I've watched his stuff in the past.
He's the best from a nationals perspective, in my opinion.
He's definitely up there. But I just have a tough time believing that LSU is not a top 10 program. The only programs that are objectively ahead of LSU, I would say 3 of them. That is Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. I would say those 3 programs are ahead of LSU. Everything else is up for debate. If you want to put some schools, if you want to put Clemson, Michigan, and a few others at 4 and 5, go for it. But LSU is firm. He had Utah on the list. Utah, Penn State. And I know you're high on Penn State moving forward. You brought that up on my live stream last night. Go to a playoff first before you start listing them in the top 10. They have not been to a playoff yet. They've not really been close. So I just have a tough time believing it, Blake, that a national college football commentator would not have LSU firmly in the top 10 and in that 4, 5, 6 range.
I don't care what order you put them in, but I'm with you. And to not have LSU up there and have other teams ahead of them, I mean, and then he talked about program health. What shows you more about program health than winning the West?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. After you go ahead.
Yeah. After 2 mediocre seasons that was objectively coached really badly. Like, it was horrible. It was really, really horrible. We've all seen the film. We've all watched these games. You played man coverage on every snap. You still ended up being nearly a 500 program. And the first year, and obviously Brian Kelly's a really talented coach, but the first year after that happened, LSU wins the West. And I also think, Blake, if you want to, because I know Pate mentioned immediate success, I think a good sign of program health is for the 2nd consecutive year, LSU brought in arguably the best transfer portal class. This is the 2nd offseason where it is no less than a top 5, top 10 transfer portal class. That is a sign of people really wanting to be a part of the program. So it's just really, really hard for me to believe that LSU is not firmly in the top 10.
Well, I think it's funny too. Like 247, they didn't list Denver Harris as a 5-star transfer portal guy, right? Well, how can he go from a 5-star when he was coming out, and then Aaron Anderson, Like, how can you not have both those guys 5 stars when they're coming out of high school? You had them as 5 stars. It makes zero sense. So now are you saying that you're wrong, or are you saying that you're wrong? Well, see, I'm about to go off on him. He's a buddy of mine. He's been on the show 3 times. I like Josh a lot. I think the way that he articulates things is fantastic. I don't agree with him here. However, he has said that he thinks in the next 5 years LSU's winning 1, possibly 2 national titles. So I'm not going to rip on him hard, but I think I understand what he's trying to say. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Carter, last thing for you.
Let's go.
You talk about women's basketball. Let me ask you this. Kim Mulkey's 58-8 in 2 years. Who's going to win a national title first? Kim Mulkey, Jay Johnson, or Brian Kelly, or Matt McMahon?
Okay, so we can X out one of those names right off the jump.
You never know, man. You never know.
Well, yeah, especially with heck, freaking Florida Atlantic has a
Never
chance.
know.
I am actually going to go with Jay Johnson.
Yeah,
right?
You are, and you hate baseball.
I don't hate baseball. I just don't watch every pitch like you do. But
I do.
I have a lot of respect for you guys. I obviously LSU baseball looks amazing, but the College World Series is random, right? There's a lot of luck that goes.
I mean, what is March Madness though?
Oh, it's super random as well. And honestly, this year in women's basketball has been one of the more upset, stricken years.
Has to be as chalky in women's basketball as it normal. I mean, UConn.
Yeah.
UConn's not in the Final Four.
And I think Pierce is in here. Pierce told me this not too long ago. Women's basketball is very chalky, right? It is very
chalky,
straightforward, to the point. And Miami,
like 3 years in a row, all number 1 seeds made the Final Four.
Right. So normally, who's supposed to win is supposed to win. And LSU avoided the Miami Hurricanes, who upset Indiana on their home floor. And they did. I don't think that game is going to be remembered amongst the best basketball games of all time. But you won, and you're in the Final Four, and that is a step forward. I do think if LSU, and I haven't kept up with the women's today, I think South Carolina won today. I'll confirm that really quickly.
But it doesn't matter. They're going to win anyway.
They're up by 15 right now.
Yeah,
so
right.
If it does get to the point, and once again, LSU, they'll play the winner of Virginia Tech and Ohio State. If LSU gets through that matchup and they play South Carolina, I do think LSU would need to switch up their strategy just a little bit, right? They're a very
Iowa versus South Carolina is much watch TV.
Yeah, of course. And
I'm going to be honest. Carter, I just don't think that LSU women's can beat Iowa or South Carolina.
They have a better shot against Iowa than
that Clark girl goes off on South Carolina. Dude, she had 41 points. She had a 41-point triple-double the other night. Okay. She could single-handedly make South Carolina's life a living hell.
I hope they win. I hope they pull it off, because what LSU likes to do is get as good of a shot as close to the basket as they possibly can, right? Against South Carolina, you got to hit outside. You got to hit outside shots, right? And LSU has just not shot the ball absolutely well. Obviously, it was combined 1 for 27 from 3, both teams yesterday. So, do I think LSU can win the national championship if everything went right? Of course they could. I would much rather play Caitlin Clark in Iowa instead of
Not me.
Oh, so you would prefer play South Carolina?
Yeah, you know why? Because you already played them before, and it's hard to beat a good team twice.
Oh, okay. I like that. And
Carter, when you I don't know. We'll see. All right, buddy.
We'll see you, man.
You're the best.